Each week, American History TV's Real America brings you archival films that provide context for today's public affairs issues.
Some years ago, war reached into the American home, and the farewells were everywhere. The farms, the shanty on the tracks, the lavish apartments, the uptown flats, the shrubbed estates, the modest houses of the suburban streets. Everywhere the men were borrowed or taken for keeps. The youngest, the cleanest, the best. Each man went into battle in his own way to do his own job. More than half of them saw combat service. A small percentage of these, not nearly as many as you may imagine, were in the front lines, in bullet and shell range of the enemy. For anyone of this latter group, a very special experience. He was, at any moment, expendable. For him, the baseball parks were full of late, exciting rallies. For him, the beach parties were not as pleasant as they had been a few summers before. For him, the rivers ran high, and the boating was not so good. For him, the flight decks were not as wide as the fields of Texas. For the rest, there were 1,000-odd military jobs, each dependent on the other, each vital to the winning of the war, each made memorable by the fact that it represented the protection of the lives and security of all of us. But whether in combat or not, whether a machine gunner 300 yards from the enemy or a switchboard operator 300 miles from the enemy, the serviceman learned about war. He knew the unutterable loneliness of it. He knew the unending boredom of it. He knew the mud of it, the dust of it. He knew the food of it. He knew the coffee of it. Whether in the heat of the equator or the cold of the Arctic, through it all he worked and waited and suffered and endured. Until one day he heard the bells of peace, turned his back on the darkened battlefields, and raised his arms to the bright, new future.